I just finished a mentoring call with a very good leader. I meet with him on the phone for an hour about every 3 months, and he's very successful. He is a top leader. And so we were having a conversation today, and he was talking about 18 months of leading people through COVID and very difficult times. And he was talking about the fact that he had just his business just expanded, I think, almost unrealistically for what he's gone through. But he said something interesting. He said, John, he said, we're really growing and things are going well. But he said, I'll have to admit, emotionally, I'm a little bit hard on myself right now. I'm not as happy as I thought I would be. He said, I just am. As I'm looking at this, I should be happier. I should be more excited. And I said, I'm happy. I'm excited. But he said, I just don't have the degree that I kind of thought I would have at this point. And he said, can you help me walk through that? And so I called him by name and I shared with him, I said, I think I understand where you are. And I said, where you are is this. For 18 months, you have been leading people uphill. You've all heard me talk about everything worthwhile is uphill, so I don't need to talk about that anymore. But the only difference between average leadership, which is always uphill, and COVID leadership is that it's just a steeper hill. And I said to him, you have been leading for 18 months uphill, bringing people along, encouraging, lifting, doing everything you could to help everybody finish the race, be successful, do better in their business, do better in their own personal life, family life. I said, you've been pulling people, pushing people, encouraging people, lifting people. And I said, I think what the challenge is you emotionally are just low on fuel. I said, what you know mentally and what you feel emotionally aren't the same. What you know mentally is this is a great accomplishment, what you're doing. But what you feel emotionally doesn't match that. And I said it's going to take some time for you to refuel and build up your emotional tank again. And I want you to know that. And he was so grateful. We had a pretty good conversation about that. He said, John, I think you just helped me. Well, I'm coming from that mentoring conversation to our mentoring time together. And really, Aaron is the one who put this lesson before me and really developed a lot of it for me. And so we had some time together and we talked it through and we built the lesson for you. And I thought, how appropriate timing-wise to come out of one mentoring session of a very successful leader who just is emotionally a little bit tired and isn't maybe celebrating to the level that he thinks that he should. And now me talking to you. And why am I talking to you about an abundance mindset? Because I think over the last 18 months, the prominent emotion in most people's life has been fear. And so as a leader, you're having to lead people through this wilderness of uncertainty and fear and what's going to happen and what's happening to me. A lot of questions. And I think you have been pulling well, leading well, doing very well. I mean, look at Monet and look at how well you've done as a company this year. But I think you've had to work harder. You've had to work harder to get where you are. Booker T. Washington said, success is not where you have arrived. He said, success is what you had to go through to get where you are. And it's the going through to get where you are that sometimes just kind of wears us out a little bit. I was doing a lesson the other day for another company, and it was entitled How to Overcome Hard Times. And my opening statement to them is what I wanted to share with you right now. I said, if you want to overcome hard times, you have to go through hard times. Don't miss this. There's no such thing as vicariously leading others how to go through difficult times without going through them yourself. How do you develop leaders? They have to practice. They have to practice leadership. How do you lead during the hard times? Well, you have to go through those hard times yourself. So as leaders, you've gone through them, but now you're trying to bring your people through them at the same time. And what I want to do is I want to really focus now. Remember, what we focus on expands. So for these next few minutes, focus with me on abundance. If you and I are walking down a street and we're just breathing, okay, we're just walking, talking, we're breathing. Not one time do you look at me and say, John, do you think there's enough air to breathe? Not one time do I look at you and say, wow, we, measure your breaths because, gosh, we could run out of air. No. It never enters our mind because we have grown up in an environment of abundance, that there's plenty of air for all of us. But let's just say, for example, we're scuba diving. And in the scuba diving, all of a sudden, maybe one of the tanks malfunctions. And instead of having two tanks, we got to have one tank to get back up to the surface. And now all of a sudden, we're being very careful and we are measuring our breaths and we are asking each other, do we have enough air in that tank? Now, what I've just described is a scarcity mindset. And let me just say this. During adversity, it's okay for a brief time to go into scarcity. And the reason it's okay is because just as the scuba diving illustration is, we understand we got a problem. We only have one tank of air. We've got to get back to the surface. So now we have to measure our breaths. Now we are asking the question, is there enough air? And what I want you to know is during difficulties, during surprises, there's a tendency for us all to say, oh, what do I have? How much do I have? Again, the best way I can illustrate that is, when COVID hit, probably the first 2 months, Mark and I continually discussed the issue of how do we make payroll and how do we keep people on board and how what adjustments do we have to make? And Mark, as a good leader, began cutting and pulling back. We did that so we could take care of our people because our people were first. But I mean, he had to make all kind of adjustments and he literally operated with there may not be enough money to go around. There may be issues we don't know about. And he took a scarcity mindset. Now, here's what I want you to catch. It's okay to have a scarcity mindset in an emergency. It's not okay when the emergency is over to stay in that type of thinking. That's what I don't want you to miss. And so many times, I think, we allow what happened behind us or the experiences that we've had to begin to cause us to lead differently instead of leading abundantly. Again, we go back to the illustration I've given you before. Am I a river or am I a reservoir? A reservoir has a scarcity mindset. Hold the water. You may need it for not a rainy day. And the river is just flowing and giving and depositing water wherever it can or wherever it should. So we want to focus in this lesson purely on abundance. Now, Stephen Covey is the person who really, I think, gave us the breakthrough on abundance in his 7 Habits of Effective People. And if you'll let me, I'm going to read just a couple paragraphs in the book because I don't know if you've read it. By the way, if you haven't read the 7 Habits, I want to say that is a book you ought to read without any question. That is a classic book on leadership and even more, a classic book on success in life. And Stephen Covey was a terrific friend of mine and a terrific leader, and he tragically died a few years ago. But in fact, he wrote the foreword on my book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. So the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, if you don't have the book, you need to get the book. I'm going to read a paragraph. In fact, when I read this couple paragraphs, you'll say, oh, I need to go get this book. Here's what Stephen said. Most people are deeply scripted in what I call a scarcity mentality. They see life as having only so much, as though there were only one pie out there. And if somebody were to get a piece of that pie, it would mean less for somebody else. The scarcity mentality is a zero-sum paradigm of life. People with scarcity mentality have a very difficult time sharing recognition and credit, power, or profit, even with those who help in the production. They also have a hard time being genuinely happy for the success of other people. Then Stephen Covey says, now let me contrast that to the abundance mentality. The abundance mentality flows out of a deep inner sense of personal worth and security. It is the paradigm that there is plenty out there and enough to spare for everybody. It results in the sharing of prestige, recognition, profits, and decision-making. It opens possibilities, options, alternatives, and creativity. Now, Stephen did a great job just giving us the scarcity mindset and the abundance mindset. I think probably you already had that, but I wanted to read from that classic book and again encourage you, if you don't have it, to purchase it. So let me now break it down for you. There are three very simple statements. They all kind of just go together. Just let me give them to you. Then we're going to build off of them. We're going to do some teaching. The first statement is that I see what I'm prepared to see. I don't see everything, and you don't see everything either. We don't see what is. We see what we're prepared to see. That's why two people can be in the same meeting and see totally different things. That's why a person can even go into a room and see. My gosh, I remember one time Margaret was at a conference with me, and so we were having lunch after the morning session, and she said, you know, John, when the guy came up to you with the blue coat, well, you were in a conversation with him for a while. What did he ask? And I said, Margaret, I don't remember somebody talking to me in a blue coat. Oh, no. I mean, he was with you. You probably were there together for 4 or 5 minutes. He had a blue coat on, and he was like a foot away from you. I mean, you're talking. The guy in the blue coat, I'm just curious, what was the conversation about? Well, Margaret, I don't remember seeing a guy in a blue coat. Now, was a guy in a blue coat in front of me? Of course. He's 3 feet away from me. Did I see the blue coat? No. Why? Margaret is into colors and decoration. She's an artist. She can tell you what everybody is wearing and what colors they all have. I can tell you none of that. I don't. That isn't even where I am. I'm watching facial expressions, and I'm watching the lean in. I'm watching posture and everything. So now here's what I want you to understand is that this is huge. I see what I'm prepared to see. Now this is important because if I'm prepared to see scarcity, I will constantly see that there's not enough. If I'm prepared to see abundance, I will constantly see that there's more enough. Now, let me give you the second statement. The second statement is, what I see becomes reality to me. It's real. And so when somebody comes up to me and they have a scarcity mindset and they say, you know what, I think I don't think we're going to be able to make it. I look at them and I say, I think you're probably right. You won't be able to make it. Someone else comes up and they may be in the Monet and they say, my gosh, I think this is the sky is the limit. Yeah, I think you're right. The sky's, you see, we not only see what we're prepared to see, but whatever we see, it becomes reality to us. So when a person lives in a scarcity mindset, what they're saying isn't wrong. I watch people trying to correct them all the time. No. What they see is what they see. It's reality to them. Just as a person in an abundance mindset, what they see, that's a reality too. Which brings me to the third statement. And the third statement is, how I view things determines how I do things. So all of my behavior comes out of how I see things. That's why this abundance mindset is absolutely huge. Stephen Covey, in his book, basically what he says is very simple. He said, in a world of scarcity, you constantly miss opportunity, even when abundance is all around you. What's he saying? You're not lacking opportunity because opportunity is not there. You're lacking opportunity because you're not seeing opportunity. You have a scarcity mindset. You see, scarcity equals the negative, which equals what I would call fearful emotions, where abundance equals belief or faith, which is positive emotions. So we both have it. I have within me, you have within you a scarcity emotion, and you have also an abundance emotion. You've got them both in you. There's no such thing as you are void of one. I have both belief and I have both fear. Okay? That's not the question. The question is, which of the two is the stronger? Because the stronger emotion always wins. Not sometimes wins, not usually wins. The stronger emotion always wins. So if my scarcity fear emotion is greater than my belief abundance emotion, then to be honest with you, I will recognize that some people are abundant, but I'll go right back into the fear pattern. And the reverse is also true. The stronger emotion always, not sometimes, the stronger emotion always wins. So, how do we control that? We control our emotions by our emotions. The next time you're really trying to figure this out, just take the word emotion and strike the letter E. Motions create emotions. Motions determine emotions. So constantly get into that compounding, appreciating activity to continue to have an abundance mindset, because the more that you appreciate, the more that you see abundance. Just like the less you appreciate, the more that your world begins to shrink around you. So that's number one. You got that one. You're masters at that, all right? You're already PhDs at Baudet in recognition and appreciation. I mean, you excel there. So I don't think I need to spend much time on that one. Number two, though, is a good one. Choose to see opportunity. Now, isn't this interesting? Choose to see opportunity. Most people are hoping that opportunity finds them. We almost have a four-leaf clover mindset about opportunity and possibility. And we just kind of hope that we're at the right place at the right time with the right people doing the right thing. And all of a sudden, this opportunity appeared before us, and we go, oh my gosh, look what just kind of like fell into my lap. I'm not saying that at all. If you want to have an abundance mindset, you don't wait for opportunity to find you. You choose to find opportunity. You choose to see opportunity. So the next time that you're faced with an obstacle, the next time you're faced with some kind of a difficulty, a barrier, a roadblock, a dead end, whatever, the next time you see that negative, which would cause you to go into a scarcity mindset, flip it. Just flip it. And see it as an opportunity. Because that's what it is. Opportunities are always disguised as obstacles. Remember this, opportunities do not come to you and me like a Las Vegas strip with neon signs and lights that are flashing on and off saying, here I am, an opportunity, I'm an opportunity, seize me, seize me, seize me. I was talking the other day, in fact, I think, Mark, you may have been on the golf course on this day too with me, because we were talking to Dan Cathy. We were playing golf at Jupiter Hills. And he was talking to us about the fact that during COVID, Chick-fil-A's business has increased 18%. Okay, now get the picture. They can't go inside. The doors are closed. You can't go inside and order. You can't go sit down at the restaurant. So a big part of their business is taken away from them. They can't go inside. And yet their business has increased 18%. What did they do? They said, okay, we lost something. Now, if I have a scarcity mindset, I dwell on what I lost. But they have an abundance mindset, so they said, okay, what do? We have to upgrade our curb service. It's just very simple. We have to deal with what we have. So let's get better at curb service, and let's start doing double lanes, and let's get more personnel out on the front end, and let's get them in the beginning, and let's start talking to them, and let's get creative, and let's be out where the people are. And they just totally took a disadvantage and made it an advantage. Now, let me say this. When you have an abundance mindset, you'll take a disadvantage and make it an advantage. Just like if you have a scarcity mindset, you'll take an advantage and it really turns into a disadvantage to you. 18%. And then Dan says, think what will happen to our business when they can go inside again. You see, if you ask Dan Cathy today about Chick-fil-A, he would say COVID was an asset. Now, please understand, when I say that, obviously people are sick, people die. It's a tragedy. It's a terrible thing. So I don't mean it in that way. But what he would say in a business sense is, It made us upgrade our curbside service. What have you upgraded during the difficult time, the high climb? What is it that you've gotten better at? What have you improved to make up the difference for that which perhaps you lost? Sometimes people come to me and they'll say, "Oh, John, boy, there was an opportunity and I missed it. It was kind of like in front of me, and before I could make the decision, it was gone, and I lost that opportunity." And I always look at him and say, "No, you didn't. Don't worry, you didn't lose it. Somebody found it." Who finds the opportunity? The abundance person. Scarcity people never find an opportunity. But the abundance person, they've just been waiting for it. And when you pass it on because you think that there's little or less, they're going to say, "Oh my gosh, there's much more." It's a mindset. So choose to see the opportunity. An abundance person says there's an opportunity there. The third thing that I want you to do is remind yourself that there is more than enough. And I would say not only remind yourself, Covey talked about the pie, remember? And he said, if there's only one piece of pie and somebody takes a piece out, or if there's only one pie, somebody takes a piece out of it, you're saying, wow, there's only 5 pieces left. You know what Stephen Covey would say? Go bake more pies. And by the way, while you're baking more pies, bake a pumpkin pie. How about a cherry pie? How about a berry pie? How about an apple pie? In other words, not only bake more pies, but get more variety in the pies in that whole process. Let me just say this. The greatest solver of problems, the greatest solvers of adversity, difficulty, pettiness, the greatest solver of pettiness is growth. When people start growing, secondary things truly become secondary things. So I want you not only to repeat after me that there's plenty for everyone, but I want you to begin saying that not only to yourself, but I want you to begin saying that to your team. And say it often enough that you not only say it, but that you live it and you believe it and you act it out and you behave it, okay? You got that. Let me give you the fourth. Remember, motion creates emotion. Number 4, carefully select the company that you keep. Now, this one's really personal, okay? Because let me tell you something. Mindsets are contagious. And so if you have a lot of scarcity people around you, can I tell you something? After a while, it'll wear you down and you'll start to think scarcity. Just like if you have a bunch of abundance people around you, it'll lift you up and you'll begin to see more and begin to do more. Mindsets are contagious, and you got to limit your time. You have to limit your time with scarcity people. Or maybe this will connect with you. You've got to limit the Karens in your life. Okay? Now, I had no idea what that meant. But Aaron told me that if I said that, you would know what that meant. So do you know what that means? Ray, okay, you all know. Okay, good. It worked. Because Aaron said, tell them to eliminate the Karens in their life, and they'll just understand it immediately. And I said, well, you're going to have to, who's Karen? You're going to have to talk to me about Karen. And then she told me, I said, oh, yeah, I want to eliminate the Karens and the Carls in my life. If it's a Karen or Carl, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, if it's around Karen or Carl, if it's even close to that name, I'm eliminating him, okay? I'm just saying, no, you got a negative mindset. So that one's for Aaron. She said, oh, if you'll just tell them to eliminate the Karens, they'll get it. Now, okay, I'm a little old and outdated, but that's all right. Here's what I want you to hear. I know this journey. I've lived this journey. And I've had a lot of success in my life, and I'm going to tell you one of the reasons. I began to eliminate very early in my life the Karens and the Carls. I understood very quickly that there were people I could not afford to spend time with, that they were going to pull me down, they were going to drag me, they were going to limit me. And I would say probably the biggest decision I made as a young leader was to pick my friends very carefully and pick my team. Now, as a leader, let me just say this. As a leader, you got Karens in your group, okay? We all have Karens in our group. We have Carls in our group. and you love them unconditionally. And the verse for them when they come around you too much is this too shall pass. Okay, this too shall pass. But listen to me very carefully with the Karens and the Carls. As a leader, you have them in your group, but you have to be very careful not to spend an inordinate amount of time with them, because they'll want it. They we used to call them, when I was a pastor, EGRs, extra grace required, because it took extra grace. You just, oh my gosh, here they come again. And what I'm saying to you is, you have to understand very quickly that you need to spend the time again with those people that are going to be able to give you that return. And I began to drop very quickly hundreds, yeah, you heard that right, hundreds of scarcity people in my life. I could not afford to let them have influence into my life. I had to make a hard decision. Number 5, to have an abundance mentality and mindset, spend time in reflection. And let me just pull out reflection for a moment. I think I should have said spend time in grateful reflection. As Oprah Winfrey said, you need to have a gratitude journal. And you need to continually be writing down the things that you are grateful for. Now, because you know them, because they're on my inner circle team, both Mark and Aaron, one of the things that just stands out with both of them, major stands out with both of them, is how grateful they are. There is never a time that I'm with them, never a time, that sometime in our time, they express gratitude to me. I mean, in fact, embarrassing. Sometimes I just, okay, I got it. You're grateful. You're thankful. Now can we get back to work? But it comes right from their heart. And let me just say this. This is absolutely huge in having an abundance mindset. I have never met a person with great gratitude that had a scarcity mindset. Gratitude is synonymous to abundance. Don't miss this. Grateful people are abundant people. Just as entitlement is a scarcity mindset. And so I want you just to constantly have an attitude of gratitude. When our grandchildren were small, this is a long time ago. I'm talking about, let's see, John's now in college. He would have been about 5 years old. So this would have been, good Lord, it had been 12, 13 years ago. We the kids were little. They were from about 3 to about 10. And during Thanksgiving, we decided to do a Thanksgiving play. And we got costumes for the kids, and on Thanksgiving Day, we dressed them all up, and I gave them lines. I was kind of like the producer of this play, and John, who is pretty much a techie and not strong with words, he had one thing to say when it came his part, and that was, I have an attitude of gratitude. And I'll never forget, if I went over that one line with him once, I went over that line with him 100 times, and he'd try it, and finally looked at me and said, Papa, he said, it's just hard to have an attitude of gratitude. And I said, you know what, you're really right. And he was saying, it's hard to say it, but it was wearing him down. I'm just going to tell you right now that when you reflect with a thankful spirit, it will always keep you on the abundant side. In his book, Steve Marabelli wrote a book called Life, the Truth, and Being Free. He's a coach and he's a speaker. He said, those with a grateful mindset tend to see the message. Don't miss this. I love that. Those with a grateful mindset tend to see the message in the mess. And even though life may knock them down, the grateful find reasons, if only small ones, to get back up. The last thing I'm going to say to you, because, oh my gosh, time's running away from me. We're going to do some Q&A here in a moment. But the number 6, let me give you the last motion to do, and that is give more of what you want. Now, this sounds very counterintuitive when I say this, but one of the greatest ways to increase your abundance is to be generous. And it was, again, Zig Ziglar that helped me as a young leader. He said, if you'll help other people get what they want, they'll help you get what you want. That's what he was talking about right there. And by the way, you know I'm a person of faith. What did Jesus say? I'm going to read one verse of what he said. Give and you will receive. Your gift will return to you in full, pressed down, shaken together, to make room for more, running over and poured into your lap. The amount you give will determine the amount that you get back. In other words, be a river, not a reservoir. Have an abundance mindset. And the more that you share, give generously, open up to others. Margaret and I bought a house a few months ago, and so we're down in Florida because they put the shelves in my office, and so I came back down to put my books and get my office in order. And my office is looking great. In fact, Mark, I'll have to take a picture and send it to you. I mean, it's really looking good. Okay, I mean, it's really looking good. And so, but there's, we're trying to put things into the office that were in the previous office, and some things fit, some things don't fit. That's just the way it works. But I had some of these great John Wesley Staffordshire antiques. One of them today, it was made in 1810, so it's 221 years old. And I don't have a place for all of them in this new office. The configuration's different. And so I've got me a shelf up at the top, and I told Mark that I called it my generosity shelf. And I put a whole bunch of things that probably don't fit in my office that I just love, really love, and they're just very important to me. I put that up there. And I said, I'm just going to keep them there, and when somebody comes to see me that's important to me or they mean a lot to me, I'm just going to reach up there and pull something down and give it to them. Now, I want you to know that mindset that I have is going to cause me problems. Because as I share and am generous and give it away, I'm going to get more in return. And then I'm going to have a real problem. I'm going to have a storage problem before it's all over. I close with this quote, then we'll do Q&A. William James said, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their life by altering the attitudes of their mind." He's right. And you and I can change our mindset the moment we want to. So let's just determine throughout the rest of this year, we are going to think, live, and be part of the abundance mindset.
I do want to give some really practical application in how you live this out from a leadership perspective. So Mark and I chatted just a minute before we started, and I said, hey, I know you're working on this with John. There's a bunch of them here. Give me 2 or 3, and let's talk about some practical application, and that's what we're going to do. So the first one that I just want to hear from you and share with our listeners is the opportunities are not seized in ideal situations. And I think some of the greatest opportunities I've seen you and John walk through were definitely not ideal situations. But how are you growing in the mindset to understand these situations we're in right now, they're not ideal, but there are going to be opportunities in them? Talk to me about the conversations you've had, maybe examples. Just share from your heart on what you're learning in regards to that from an opportunity standpoint.
I think the biggest thing for me in opportunities, and especially in this opportunities not in the ideal situation, is leaders can never turn it off. And I know we're supposed to, and I know we should, and I know we need rest, and I got all that. But some of the greatest opportunities, as John taught in this lesson, comes when? In times of problems, right? A problem presents itself, and then boom, we have an opportunity. Well, one of our problems is, Chris, you know this, our bandwidth here at the Maxwell Leadership is stretched. Now, we have 22% more HR personnel, human resources. We have 22% more this year than we did last year. And that was after another 20% from the year before. We have grown significantly in the past little bit. Here's why. I'm building the platform. I'm building the foundation where we can have bandwidth to pursue more opportunities. John teaches, and this is a little bit of teaching, and I'm going to get into application, but John teaches test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter, right? We've talked about that multiple times. We hear that all the time here in our community. But for us to have a test, fail, learn, improve re-enter mindset, going from founder to foundation, one of the things that I've found that we have to do is we have to increase the bandwidth. We have to increase our ability to pursue opportunities, because John has a nose for opportunity. Number one, he's gifted. Number two, he has wisdom of many, many years of being able to ascertain pretty quickly, is that a good opportunity? Is it not? Well, I'm a new leader. I'm a new guy to having to sense and seize opportunity. I've just been the guy executing on yesterday's opportunities.
Right.
Well, now I've got to sense and seize them. Well, guess what's going to have to happen for this 52-year-old guy? I'm going to have to test, fail, learn, improve, and re-enter. I'm going to have to try a lot of things to determine if some things work. Now, will I have to try everything 10 years from now that I'm having to try now? No. But right now I'm having to try a lot. So leaders, here's my first practical point. If you're new at sensing and seizing opportunity, build bandwidth within your team that gives your organization elasticity to test things that are not going to work out.
That's right.
Your fail ratio will be less in the first part of sensing and seizing opportunity.
Yeah.
You will get better. And I think for me that one is, it doesn't speak to me if I try a bad opportunity. It speaks to my immaturity. It doesn't speak to me that it was a failure. It speaks to me that it was a lesson learned. And I think for what I would tell you at the very beginning of opportunities are not ideal situations, you've got to change the perspective and say failure is okay.
Yeah.
Trying too many things is okay. And our ability to learn from them is the desired outcome, not a successful opportunity.
Yeah.
You know what I want today? I want to know something didn't work as much as I want to know something did work.
That's right.
That mindset is absolutely imperative if you're going to learn how to sense and seize opportunity.
And what underlines all of what you just talked about is one of our values, and John's so passionate about, which is growth, right? Like, I mean, that is a personal growth journey. That's one of many that you're on. But as leaders, as we go through those opportunities, if we're okay and we're open to that and testing and failing, we're going to be learning. And every day we should be learning, just like we're sensing for new opportunities. Now, one of the things I want to transition you in, because this is something we've struggled with when it comes to focus on certain opportunities. There is a time, and I know both you and I have sought counsel and wisdom from John's brother, Larry, and he says one of the things leaders don't do is get out fast enough, right? And so there are going to be opportunities that we have the privilege of walking down the road that will multiply our business, our top line revenue, our reach, whatever your KPIs are. There are opportunities that are going to multiply that for you. But then there are opportunities that are just going to disappear. And I think you have to have, not only from the leader perspective, but the team and the capacity that you talked about that's working on, you guys have to be okay with saying, where did it go, right? Like, don't go try to dig it back up if it is disappearing. If you walk through that door and there was a reason to do that and the opportunity was there, it's either going to multiply or disappear. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about that in regards to what you're seeing running this lap with John and where you're at around opportunities.
Well, so recently, a few weeks now ago, we all got to watch the Masters of golf. And for those of you that don't watch it, I'm sorry, you miss one of the greatest televised sporting events that there is. And you've played sports at every level. And in sports, you realize that there are opportunities that come and you miss them. And you know what sports, the greatest of athletes do? When they realize they missed it, they learn from it, but they move on. And I've watched too many business people that when the opportunity disappeared, they try to go recreate the opportunity, and they spend more time on resurrecting yesterday's opportunity than looking for tomorrow's opportunity. Yeah. And what we can learn from sports right here, Chris, is an opportunity will disappear. You missed it. Okay, get over it. Let's go. Let's keep moving, rather than going and trying to resurrect it. I've also seen, to the point of your question here, to where you sense an opportunity and it begins to multiply and begins to produce greater results than you can even handle. I think learning to triage is a word, or learning to prioritize is another word, on opportunities that begin to multiply is very important. Let me explain. Several years ago, we were launching a new initiative for one of our nonprofit. And as we launched this, the opportunities began to explode. In other words, you've heard us talk about it. We went from 2 presidents of companies inviting us to countries, rather, 2 presidents of countries inviting us to come in to 22. You know what John wanted to do? Say yes to every one of them. Say yes to what was the statement that he made? Opportunities takes now for an answer, not no for an answer, now for an answer, and we began to accept bad partners in the sake of sensing and seizing opportunity. And I know John is teaching this from a great perspective of, hey, sometimes they multiply, sometimes they disappear. Right. Be okay with either one. Keep moving.
Right.
But at the same time, I think we also need to understand that when we miss an opportunity, we need to learn from it so that we don't miss it again. Mm-hmm. But we do need to move.
That's right.
And the second thing is sometimes there's too much opportunity, and we need to learn how to prioritize that so that the multiplication of that opportunity doesn't become distraction to what's working within the organization.
That's good. Listeners and viewers, I hope you caught that right there, because we can sit here at this podcast, and as we're sharing and on video and you're listening to audio, we've been distracted before.
We have.
We've made some mistakes where we've lacked focus. Matter of fact, you've taken us through some exercises where we went back over a 5 or a 7, 10-year period, and we said, where was the greatest impact and influence that we've had? And we looked, and it was where we were keeping focus on certain things. And so don't miss that point as we talk about opportunities. Well, as we wrap up, there's one other one as we talked about in this season of growth that you're in from a leadership with John. And this is the nourishing the opportunities. They're going to be there. They're going to multiply. They're going to grow. Daily, we're going to be looking at it. But we have to intentionally, there's another one of our favorite words around here, intentionally nourish these opportunities to even give them a shot.
Yeah.
Talk about some things you put in place. And I'm sitting here smiling while I tell you that, because even you working with me and giving me some additional responsibility outside of my day job, which we all have day jobs around here, and then we have the job, right? The other jobs that we have around here. But you got to nourish them, right? Yeah. They are given to you for an opportunity. You were aware, you were keen about. You got to nourish them and to know if they're going to bear any fruit.
It's funny that your mind went the same place, because we did not.
I saw the look in your eye, like almost like you had something else you wanted to share with me too.
In fact, right now I brought you here to tell you about another opportunity I need you to work on.
That's right.
What's interesting is as you were saying that I went right back to what you did, and we're in a window. And most organizations and most leaders do feel like it's a window. It's now or never. It's fight right now. Let's go. We're in this window of going from founder to foundation. We're in this window of taking our one pen that we've been writing with for many, many years, John Maxwell's pen, and we're placing the Maxwell Leadership pen into multiple thought leaders' hands. And we're merging. We're acquiring organizations. And I believe that in merging and acquiring organizations and sensing the opportunity like we're talking about and seizing the opportunity, there are some non-negotiables.
Yeah.
One is culture. Culture has got to be protected. It's got to be fought for, because there's been the statistics are not with us in mergers and acquisitions,
right.
Okay? Don't go look at the statistics, because it'll scare you from ever merging and acquiring anything.
That's right.
However, there are success rates. There are success factors, and I think one of those is culture. So going back to you, Chris, we've got a window here to where our opportunities need to be nourished. So what are we feeding our opportunities? We're feeding them culture. We're feeding them foundational principles. You've been in John's World. You took a sabbatical. We all laughed about that, but you started John's World before I did. You get this in a way that very few people do. So when I am acquiring or merging or sensing an opportunity, in this case, bringing organizations, teams together, you know who I rely on to nourish that opportunity? The people that know what the opportunity should look like when it is culminated into our organization. It's Goody. The other day, we had a leadership meeting, and I was talking about the worst case scenarios with a particular opportunity that we're going. And I say, I'm prepared for the worst case opportunity. Because if the worst case scenario happened, you know what I'd do? Chris Godey would change his office. He's going to start coming in another part of town because I got to have him there. And you kind of laugh because we've said we're willing to do whatever. Yeah. And maybe that was the first time you heard it positioned like that. But we already know we're going to nourish these opportunities that we have by feeding the nutrients and the things that's needed for that opportunity to ever have a chance.
Yeah. And what I love about what you're doing, and even just what you said, is this: as you nourish these opportunities for maybe your business, maybe you have a selfless lens on why you're looking at it. The awesome thing about what we're doing is we're nourishing the souls, if you don't mind, of those that are inside those organizations. We're adding value to people. Again, coming back to another core principle of ours and a value, we're adding value to people that then they can even multiply. You talk about bringing additional pens. I was on a call this morning, Chad Johnson and I, with one of our thought leaders, and we were like, hey, what else can we help you with? What can we take off your plate? How can we get you to the point to where, and having those conversations nourishes not only a bigger opportunity for our enterprise to be able to get a message out there to people that we have a passion about, but also it nourishes those individuals and adds value to those people. So those were just three that we wanted to kind of share and pull out. Again, there's nobody better and nobody better than John that sees his opportunities and works them and has taught you to be able to do that. We wanted to give you some application to be able to do that. Closing thoughts for our audience?
Yeah. One is, it goes back to Sun Tzu's quote that says, victory comes from finding opportunities in problems. And in my case, and all I can bring to you, podcast family, is where I am and how I'm leading. The biggest thing that I have in sensing and seizing opportunities is not letting how I used to view environments affect the opportunity that is laden in that environment.
That's good.
And we were at a golf tournament recently with some very well-known, recognizable names to you. And we went to the golf tournament in the guise of supporting a new friend, a new partner. What we found was more opportunity than we knew what to do with. What we discovered was partners that did not even know that there was something we could partner on. And I can tell you that golf tournament that could have been just a golf tournament, went and had fun in a very, very nice course. But we had a little bit more intention. We wanted to support a friend. It could have stopped at the golf. It could have stopped at supporting a friend. But what happened by the end of the night, Chris, was a realization that opportunities are more prevalent than we're aware of. They're more readily available for the picking, if you will, than we even realize.
Always make your gratitude greater than your success. Always make your gratitude greater than your success. Increased gratitude is essential for lifetime growth. Only a small percentage of people are continually successful over the long run. These outstanding few recognize that every success comes from the assistance of many other people, and they are continually grateful for this support. Conversely, many people whose success stops at some point are in that position because they have cut themselves off from everyone who has helped them. They view themselves as the sole source of their achievements, and as they become more self-centered and isolated, they lose their creativity and ability to succeed. Continually acknowledge others, their contributions, and you will automatically create room in your mind and in the world for your greater success. You will be motivated to achieve even more for those who have helped you. Focus on appreciating and thanking others, and the conditions will always grow to support your increasing success. And I put it another way here in your notes. What we appreciate appreciates. Wow. Gets better. What we depreciate depreciates. We see the value in people and things through proactive gratitude. Once we see this value, we naturally treat these people and things with greater respect. People want to work with people who appreciate them. I underline this statement. Resources are drawn to where they are valued most. The world responds to gratitude by making more of everything we appreciate available to us. I had lunch the other day with a fellow named Rob. So when I went into the restaurant where we were going to eat, he was talking to a friend of his, and as I came in, I could tell that he had great value to that person, and so he introduced her to me and said, John, Kathy has really contributed to me, and said some very nice things, and off she went. And so we sat down for lunch, and he looked at me and he said, John, I'm practicing your book. And I said, well, that's good. I said, tell me what practice it was. I knew what he was talking about. He was talking about 25 ways to win with people. And one of the things I say is compliment people in front of other people. I was just practicing your book. And I looked at him, I said, Rob, I saw it, and that makes me feel good that you practice the book. I said, just practice it every day. Listen, there's something about expressing gratitude to people that is essential, not only for them to hear, but for you to give. Those who add to us draw us to them, and those who subtract cause us to withdraw. Gratitude by its very nature also automatically works to eliminate 3 mental characteristics that most undermine individual success in an interactive world. Number 1 is isolation. Number 2 is egotism. And number 3 is arrogance. Henry Ward Beecher said, a proud man is seldom a grateful man, for he never thinks he gets what he deserves. Or, the more you complain, the less you'll obtain. That works, doesn't it? Oprah Winfrey said, keep a grateful journal. Every night list 5 things that happened this day that you're grateful for. What we'll begin to do is change your perspective of your day and your life. If you can learn to focus on what you have, you will always see that the universe is abundant and you will have more. If you concentrate on what you don't have, you'll never have enough. If you learn to appreciate more of what you already have, you'll find yourself having more to appreciate. How true it is. I love the story of an immigrant shopkeeper whose son came to him one day complaining. He said, Dad, I don't understand how you run this store. You keep your accounts payable in a cigar box, your accounts receivable are on the spindle, and all your cash is in the register. He said, you're never going to know what your profits are. And the immigrant shopkeeper father said to him, son, let me tell you something. When I arrived in this land, all I owned was the pants I was wearing. Now your sister's an art teacher, your brother's a doctor, you're a CPA. Your mother and I own a house and a car and this little store. Add that all up and subtract the pants, and that is your profit. Be grateful.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. What a short teaching from John, but what a powerful point. Doesn't take long sometimes to remind us what we as leaders need to do. You know, Tracy, you know this about me because we get to share it, but every year, there is this favorite time of the year that I have. Drum roll, what do you think it is? I know some of you, you're like Christmas, Easter, you're like Valentine's Day. That's a pretty good one. I like that. I like Stephanie's birthday. That's always fun for us. But for me, my favorite holiday every year is Thanksgiving. In fact, this past Thanksgiving in 2021, Kimberly, my executive partner, and I, we did something that was very unique. We found somebody on our team every day to send a note of gratitude to. Tracy, you were one of them. Just this text that let people know we're grateful, why we're grateful, and what we hope to do together because of gratitude. And so today I just came back and I appreciate our podcast team so much because it is no coincidence that May, the first podcast of May, is a reminder that yes, we're 6 months. We're the furthest point that we could possibly be from 2021's November and 2022's November, and yet it's still a good month to practice gratitude. And so whether you're viewing the podcast on YouTube or whether you're listening on your favorite podcast recorder, here is the ultimate standout statement. Here's the theme of what we're trying to do, and that is this. Gratitude is a choice. It's a choice on the fourth Thursday of Thanksgiving or fourth Thursday of November in the U.S. It's a choice on the first Wednesday of May around the world. Will you be a leader that practices is gratitude. And Tracy, wow, this is the perfect co-host because I've watched you through the years never take an opportunity to stand along myself or John with anything more than a first thing to do is express gratitude. Now let's get busy. And you do that, and I love that.
Oh, well, thank you, Mark, because I feel like, we're drawn to one another, aren't we? We tend to be drawn to, like brings like to it. And so what I love about the kickoff of this, and when John was talking about the gentleman who we met with who said, I'm practicing your book. And that's really what we all do. Is John is such a person who's so grateful, so thankful. Even when something goes wrong, John finds something to be thankful or grateful about. And I've seen the same in you. It's not that you're covering up the bad thing or the wrong thing that's happening, but it's an attitude of finding something to be grateful for in that moment that actually buoys your spirit in that moment and the people around you. And you are really good about that. So it's kind of finding a way to laugh at the situation that you're in and turning it around. And wouldn't you say that is really the reason, one of the main reasons, I would say, perhaps the most reason that why you went from being a telesales marketer in Maxwell Leadership companies to being in the position that you are as the CEO, as the one who is championing this whole mission of moving what John started so many years ago forward and bringing all of us with you, is because of your attitude of gratitude. You really did practice what was in John's books and bringing us forward. And the root of that is really your attitude, having an attitude of gratitude.
It's funny that you bring this up because John and I were in Columbia, South Carolina at Columbia University just a little while ago. And we had the privilege of blowing the dust off of a book. In fact, I'm going to put it in the show notes, Jake, because the book is 360-Degree Leader. In fact, I'm doing something so off script right now. If you will go pick that book up, we're going to give you 15% off of that book. In fact, if you'll go to maxwellpodcast.com/gratitude, we'll put it in the show notes of how you can get that 15% discount. But John and I blew the dust off of that book because they asked us to teach on 360. How do you influence up? How do you influence at the peer level? How do you influence to people that report to you? And Tracy, as we were getting to co-teach that content the other day, I realized that every group needs to start. If you want to grow influence with any group, those above you, those around you, those that report to you, if you want to gain influence, it needs to start with gratitude. Are you thankful for the people, the role of the people above you? And the answer to many leaders that are aspiring leaders is no. They found out all the fault, all the challenge with those leaders, rather than being grateful for the journey they took to get where they are. And we look at our peers as competitors, don't we? Oh, if I can just do a little bit better than the other sales manager, or if I can do a little bit better than this other person in the organization, I'll get a quicker promotion, a bigger promotion. And so we see them as competitors rather than teammates. And then finally, we take for granted those that help us as leaders get where we're supposed to be all the time. I feel like, Tracy, to your point, I'm going to come back to it. If we could just infuse more gratitude, we would grow the level or the capacity of our influence to the people in these circular environments of ecosystems around us. So yes, just the other day I got to be with my good friend David Hoyt. David was the leader that gave me my first chance to be that telesales representative you were talking about, and back in the year 2000. Man, it feels like a long time ago. And Tracy, my first thing to him to say was the exact same thing I try to say to him every time. It's been a while since I've seen him. David, thank you for giving me a chance. Mm-hmm. I say that to John. Just got back from, like I said, Columbia, South Carolina, and I looked at him on the flight back, and I just went, John, thanks for letting me share the stage with you today. And his response was, oh, Mark, you deserve it. You should be up there. And I go, no, don't know that I deserve it. Don't know that I should be. but I sure am grateful that I am. And it's this whole concept. I never want to lose that, because I think losing the gratitude begins to lose the ability to see that others are the biggest part of our success.
That's right. And we all know people, who don't necessarily look for ways to thank somebody else or to show them your gratitude. And then we know those people who, John's so right, those who add to us, draw us to them, who make us feel so valued, such a valued member of the team. John could say that to you, you could come off and John could say, "You deserve it, Mark," and you could say, "Thank you, John," and really feel it and take that in. But then the fact that you say, no, I don't know that I do, that humbling, anchoring, you and I were talking a little bit about, I would love for you to share what we were talking about just before we came on air, because I think it's just so powerful, that anchoring that you talked about, that humility, because I think we all know people who don't, and we're so drawn to the people who have that anchoring humility.
Well, it's a lesson, Tracy, that John is doing, and I will not teach the lesson on the podcast. It's John's, and trust me, you need to hear it. But I was telling Tracy, I said, Tracy, I hadn't seen Tracy in a little while. She's got some incredible things to be grateful for that's happening in her family.
That's
her
right.
family is growing with in-laws, outlaws, and she don't look at them as in-laws or outlaws. They're a part of the family, and
That's right.
her family is growing, and just beautiful, beautiful, very beautiful family that Tracy has. And so anyway, we were talking a little bit about it because it's been a little time since we caught up. And I said, Tracy, John has been doing the last week or so, he's been doing this lesson that is absolutely one of the best lessons I've heard in a long time. And I get to hear John quite often. And the lesson is simply this, podcast viewers, podcast listeners. It's called the Success Stabilizers. Success stabilizers. Now, isn't it true that you're listening to this podcast today, you're viewing this podcast today because you want some success in your life? That's what we found. We found that over 90% of the people that interact with Maxwell Leadership, they come for inspiration and skills, resources to become better. So chances are 9 out of 10 of you are tuning in today because you want to be inspired with something, some nugget that will help you be a little more effective, a little more successful in your leadership. And so John says, but then when we become successful, something happens. We don't keep success in a proper perspective as leaders. We begin to let success be a little more inflated in its value, or we let success be a finish line that doesn't propel us with that success into significance. Success is what happens to us. Significance is what happens through us. And so John's doing this incredible teaching called Success Stabilizers. Now, it's his lesson, so I'm going to let him teach it, but I'm going to give you 2, and then I'm going to give you the third one that's very apropos. It's very relevant to today's podcast. The first characteristic, or one of the things that really comes with success, is a bit of an ego. A bit of a swag, a little bit of a confidence to our step, right? I mean, Tracy, I see it.
Okay, I really hope that you are going to tune in and watch this on YouTube.
I gave some moves
Mark
there.
Just did. He kind of ventured into dancing almost.
Yes.
I'm not sure what that was, but I'm not sure it was ego, but it was a little bit of a dance. A swag was.
Podcast listeners, don't tune in, because very quickly you're going to understand I have a face for radio and I have a voice for the mute button. So do not tune in.
But you've got dance moves that they've just got to see.
Yes. So it's this concept that, with a little bit of success, we get a little bit of an ego. We get a little bit of a confidence that if we're not careful, if it's not stabilized, we will allow that to become a detriment to our success rather than something that extends our success into significance. And so the stabilizer to ego is humility. We've got to constantly stay in this place of humility. That's why, Tracy, thank you for complimenting a while ago when I say John told me just yesterday, hey, Mark, such a great job on stage. Thank you very much. And I go, John, man, I don't know that I deserve this. I want to always, Patrick Lencioni, our friend, says that one of the key attributes of a great leader is humility. Humility, hunger, and a desire with skill sets and strengths. And I want to keep that humility. And John says that's a stabilizer to ego. He said, Second thing that comes a lot of times with success is money. So another characteristic of success is we allow monetary things, money, bank accounts, growth, and nicer cars or things to indicate success. Well, money has a stabilizer in generosity. Don't show me how much money you have in your bank account. Don't show me your W-2 at the end of the year. Show me your giving statement. Because if you can continue to have this feeling of generosity, and by the way, a lack of money exposes generosity as well. I've met a lot of people that said, hey, when I make $1 million, I can't wait to give $100,000, $200,000 away. And I go, well, how much are you giving now? And when the answer is zero, I say, no, $1 million in the bank, $1 million of income is not going to make you more generous. It's going to make you more selfish. So a stabilizer to money is generosity. But then we go to the one, and I did teach a little bit of John's lesson. Still tune in because he's a lot better. But then we go to this stabilizer for another characteristic of success, and that is pride. There's a true, I believe, healthy pride. Something that really can make you and I thankful, appreciative, even respect the effort put into success, a sense of healthy pride. I certainly have that for my daughter, Macy, right now. She's just like killing it in some areas that I'd love to have more podcast time to tell you all about. There's a healthy pride, I hope it's healthy, that's there. But when you get success and you have this sense of pride in your accomplishments, you need a stabilizer. And that's where today's lesson comes in, Tracy, because the stabilizer to pride is gratitude. Is the sense that I don't stand here alone. I stand on the shoulders of those that's gone before me. I don't stand here because of my accomplishments. I stand here because Javon and Jake in the studio with me is making this podcast what it is. Just the other day, Tracy, I was on a flight coming back to Atlanta, and somebody just kind of greeted me in like almost this, I know you, how are you doing? We had masks on as we do, still traveling, and there was just this brightness in his eyes, and I went, I think I might be supposed to know this person, and anyway, we flew on and didn't say anything. Well, we get off the plane, I had a problem with my bag, and she came up and she said, hi, my name is Sarah, and you're Mark Cole, and I know this because I view the podcast. And I went, wow. And by the way, Sarah, it was so good to see you on that flight. I wish I had more time to hear your story. But I went, wow, that's because of Jake. It's because Jake showed up this morning. Mark, don't get so caught up that there's a visual representation of the podcast that somehow means that Tracy and I are the drivers of the podcast. I stand here today, I'm actually sitting, but I sit here in the studio today, as you do, Tracy, able to communicate, hopefully, value to you on the podcast because an army of women and men. I sit in the seat of CEO in the organization because Linda Eggers, not John Maxwell, Linda Eggers saw and appreciated the value of my leadership and put in a good word to the big man. She's been John's assist. She's been on John's team for over 30 years. And when Linda speaks, everyone listens. And when Linda told John, you need to check this guy Mark out that's been on the team for about 3.5 years, John began to see opportunities for me to continue climbing in the area of success. I never want to forget. I want my success today to be stabilized with the gratitude to Linda Eggers, to Jake, to Javon. I want to always stay stabilized in any successful things that I experience.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that maybe if you're listening, sitting here in this chair, not in the same room with Mark, but feeling like we're in the same room.
Yeah.
And I always sit in this podcast and I take notes to myself. If you're watching, you see me looking down sometimes as Mark is talking because I'm learning right alongside of you. And I learn and I grow when Mark shares his application. And as he did, there were just a couple things that I want to share before we close out this podcast that really stood out to me that maybe will stand out to you as well. So I have been trying to practice what's in John's books, as Mark has, as many of you have listening in and watching on this podcast. But some of you, I'm sure, beginning, or maybe this is gratitude is something that has been a sticking point for you, or an area you want to grow even more in. I know that generosity is something that I really pursue. I want to be known for generosity, and I would assume you probably do too, or gratitude. But 2 G words. I'm looking down because I wrote generosity. Let me just say, so if you're thinking that you want to pursue humility and generosity more, and whether or not that's just starting to put that more into your life, or something that you want to like really cultivate and have more and more of that in your life, how you activate that more. John really hit on that in his in the notes. So I hope that you print those notes out. But I heard something one time that really stuck with me, and I've tried to apply it, and I'm going to share it with you. They said, forget what you've keep a short account of the wrongs others have done to you. And that's on forgiveness, of course. But the flip side of that, what's applicable today, is it said, keep a short account of the rights that you've done, the right things you've done for others, the times when you've been generous. Because sometimes when you're generous with others, that you can tend to keep a running tally in the back of your head of maybe what people owe to you. So generosity can have this weird flip side of, if you do something kind for someone, you can think, well, they owe me because I've done this for them and I've done that for them. So not only should we keep a short record of the wrongs people have done for us, but we should keep a short record. Part of being generous is keeping a short account, a short memory of the right things we've done and the generous things we've done for others. And then the other things that he highlighted, that John highlighted, was keeping a gratitude journal. You know, if you're somebody who struggles with maybe a grumpy attitude sometimes, or when we all hit lows in our lives, it's nice to have a gratitude journal that you can go to and open up and look at all the times, the things that you are so grateful for, when your brain is tempted, when your mind and your emotions are tempted to really focus on the things that you are struggling with. And when you go to those things that you're grateful for and you read through them and you look through them, it just buoys your spirits. It makes you feel better. It makes you remember the real things in your life, not just these temporal things that are just popping up right now, because we're all going to have hardships. But really keeping a gratitude journal is something that I think we're way less apt to complain if we really train our brains and put in habits, healthy habits of gratitude into our life. And so I'll let you close it out, Mark, but I'm just wanting to help all of us to, the key takeaways for me from this podcast is, are we practicing what John has put into his books? That alone helps us to be more grateful people, because he is such a grateful person.
Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast, where our goal is to help you increase your reputation as a leader, increase your ability to influence others, and increase your ability to fully engage your team to deliver remarkable results.